The evening air was thick with the aroma of garlic and herbs as I stood in the kitchen, stirring a pot of simmering marinara sauce. The soft glow of the overhead light cast a warm hue over the cozy space, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of comfort, even amidst the subtle undercurrents of tension. Jake was busy in the living room, packing his suitcase for the business trip that loomed ahead. Every now and then, I could hear the rustle of fabric and the occasional muffled sigh. "Are you sure you have everything?" I called out, not wanting to pry too much but unable to shake the feeling that something was off. Yeah, Jake replied absent-mindedly, his voice slightly strained. "Just double-checking." I turned my attention back to the sauce, but my mind wandered. It felt like we were both physically present but emotionally miles apart. The way he had been avoiding my gaze lately, and the quickness of his replies, only deepened the distance I sensed between us. Sighing softly, I pushed the thoughts aside and tried to focus on the dinner I had planned. I wanted tonight to be special, a moment for us to reconnect before he left. A few minutes later, Jake emerged from the bedroom, his suitcase finally zipped up. He looked handsome, as always, but there was a distant look in his eyes that made my heart ache. "Dinner's almost ready," I said, forcing a smile. "I made your favorite." "Thanks, Em." He smiled back, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I appreciate it." As we sat down at the dining table, the clinking of cutlery seemed to echo in the silence. I tried to initiate small talk, reminiscing about a recent trip we had taken, but it felt like I was talking to a wall. "Jake, is everything okay?" I finally asked, putting my fork down. He paused, his gaze drifting to the window. "It's just work, you know. It's busy right now." "Busy or not, I feel like you're a million miles away. Is there something else going on?" He hesitated, and in that moment, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Was it guilt? But just as quickly it was gone. "Honestly, I just need to focus on this trip. Can we talk about it later?" I nodded, but my heart sank. How could I bridge this gap if he wouldn't let me in? As dinner concluded, I helped him with his suitcase, and we shared a brief hug. "Call me when you get there, okay?" I said softly, hoping for some reassurance. "Of course," he replied. But I felt the weight of unspoken words lingering in the air. After he left, the house felt eerily silent. I wandered around the empty rooms, the tick of the clock amplifying my loneliness. I knew I shouldn't let it get to me, but the unease gnawed at my insides. I reached for my phone and dialed Sarah, my best friend. "Hey girl, what's up?" she answered, her voice bright and cheerful. "Just feeling a bit restless," I admitted. "Jake just left for his trip, and I can't shake this feeling that something's off between us." "Have you talked to him about it?" I tried, but he just brushed it off. "I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking things." "Emily, sometimes you just need to focus on yourself. Do something for you tonight. You deserve it." "Yeah, maybe you're right." As I hung up, I tried to shake off the lingering thoughts of our conversation. I decided to pour myself a glass of wine and curl up on the couch with a book. It was then that I heard a soft thud from the living room. My heart raced as I set down my glass and crept towards the sound. When I turned the corner, I was taken aback to see Ryan, my brother-in-law, standing there, a sheepish grin on his face. "Hey, Em, I figured I'd check in on you since Jake's away," he said, his tone light, but something in his eyes betrayed a deeper concern. "Ryan, you scared me." I laughed nervously, trying to mask my surprise. "What are you doing here?" "Just wanted to make sure you're okay. I thought you might be feeling lonely." "I am a little, but I didn't expect you to come by." We exchanged small talk, reminiscing about our childhood, and suddenly, there was an undeniable spark between us. I felt a flutter in my stomach, a feeling I hadn't anticipated. The way he looked at me made my heart race, and I found myself leaning in closer, almost forgetting the emotional turmoil I was grappling with just moments ago. The tension crackled in the air, and I realized that this unexpected visit could change everything. I woke up slowly, the sunlight filtering through the curtains, gently coaxing me from sleep. I turned over, expecting to find Jake beside me, but instead, the bed was empty. A pang of loneliness hit me, but then I remembered. Ryan was still in the house. As I sat up, I glanced towards the kitchen, where the tantalizing aroma of coffee and something sweet wafted through the air. Curiosity piqued. I threw on a robe and padded softly to the kitchen. There he was, Ryan, standing at the stove, flipping what looked like pancakes. A smile broke across his face when he caught sight of me. "Good morning, sleepyhead," he said, his voice warm and teasing. "I hope you like pancakes." "Did you make all of this?" I asked, half in disbelief. I could hardly remember the last time anyone had made breakfast for me, let alone a delicious spread like this. "This looks amazing." Ryan shrugged, trying to play it cool, but there was a glimmer of pride in his eyes. "Just a little something to start the day off right. Figured you could use it." I felt a flutter in my stomach as I took a seat at the small dining table, the sunlight casting a golden hue over everything. "You didn't have to do all this, you know," I said, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "I appreciate it, but I don't want you to feel obligated." "Obligated?" He chuckled, shaking his head. "Emily, I'm not doing this out of obligation. I came here because I wanted to check on you. Besides, it's nice to have some company for a change." "Yeah, I guess it is," I replied, a hint of flirtation creeping into my tone. We shared a moment of silence, the air thickening with unspoken tension. "So," he said, leaning back against the counter, "how are you holding up? Jake's been away for a while now." I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "I don't know. I guess I'm just adjusting. It's been strange without him here. I feel like we've been drifting apart lately." Ryan's expression softened, his eyes searching mine. "You deserve to be happy. You know that, right? It's okay to admit if you're feeling lonely." His words struck a chord deep within me. I just keep wondering if maybe I'm missing something. I don't want to feel this way, but it's hard not to. I felt vulnerable, exposed in a way I hadn't intended. "Emily," he said, his voice low and earnest, "you're an incredible person. You deserve someone who sees that." The way he looked at me made my heart race, and for a brief moment, I forgot all about my life with Jake. We spent the morning reminiscing about our childhood, swapping stories and laughing over shared memories. Each laugh felt like a thread drawing us closer, binding us in a way that both thrilled and terrified me. I found myself leaning in, captivated by his charm, the way he made me feel seen and appreciated. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, we popped open a bottle of wine Ryan had brought. The atmosphere shifted again, becoming charged with something electric. I could feel the heat radiating between us as we sat close together on the couch, our knees brushing against each other. "Do you remember that time we got lost in the woods during that camping trip?" Ryan asked, a mischievous glint in his eye. "You were convinced we'd never make it back." "Of course," I laughed, shaking my head. "I kept thinking we'd have to survive on nothing but berries and rainwater." "Hey, I was prepared to build us a shelter," he shot back, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "I had a plan, you know." "Right, because you were such an expert at survival," I teased, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. But beneath the laughter, I felt a stirring, a pull towards him that I knew I shouldn't indulge. As the wine flowed, I became acutely aware of how close he was sitting, the warmth of his body radiating toward me. My heart raced with a tantalizing mix of excitement and fear. I could feel the moment shifting, the air thick with unspoken words. Ryan leaned in closer, and I could see the heat in his gaze. "Emily," he whispered, his breath warm against my skin. But just as he moved to close the distance between us, I hesitated. My mind raced with thoughts of Jake, of loyalty, of everything that could go wrong. I pulled back slightly, trying to catch my breath. "Wait," I said, my voice trembling. "We shouldn't." Ryan's expression changed, frustration flickering across his features. "Why not? We're just—" He paused, searching my face. "We're just being real with each other." I swallowed hard, torn between the thrill of the moment and the weight of my commitment to Jake. "I know, but I can't." The tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I had to make a choice, and as I looked into Ryan's eyes, I felt the weight of everything I stood to lose. As I pulled away from Ryan, my heart raced, the thrill of the moment fading into a dense fog of confusion. My mind screamed for clarity, yet all I could hear was the soft thump of my pulse in my ears. I glanced at Ryan, whose expression shifted from longing to frustration in an instant, and it stung more than I expected. It was as if I had just snuffed out a flame that had been kindling between us, and I felt regret wash over me in waves. I need to call Jake," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. I turned my back to Ryan, my heart heavy with the weight of my decision. I had to reach out to my husband, the man I had promised to stand by, no matter the distance that had crept between us. I dialed his number, my fingers trembling as I pressed the buttons. "Hey, Em, everything okay?" Jake's voice crackled through the line, a warm, familiar sound that momentarily soothed my racing heart. "Yeah, just checking in," I replied, trying to sound casual, but I felt the tension of my lie constricting my chest. "Good to hear. I miss you. How's your day been?" he asked, and I could imagine him leaning back in his hotel chair, a hint of concern etched on his brow. "It's been fine. Just a normal day," I lied, forcing a smile that I knew he couldn't see. My gaze flickered to Ryan, who watched me intently, a mixture of disappointment and anger swirling in his eyes. "Just fine? You sound a little off. Is everything really okay?" Jake pressed, his voice tinged with worry. "Really, Jake, I'm fine. Just a little lonely, I guess. But it's nothing I can't handle." I forced the words out, each syllable feeling like a betrayal. As I hung up, the silence of the room enveloped me, heavy and suffocating. Ryan broke the silence, his voice low and steady. "You didn't have to lie to him, Emily." I turned to face him, my heart pounding. What was I supposed to say? That I was almost kissing my brother-in-law? His jaw clenched, and he stepped closer, the air thick with unspoken words. "You can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. You deserve more than that." I felt a mixture of anger and sorrow at his words. "And what do you suggest? That I just leave Jake? It's not that simple." Ryan's eyes softened for a moment, and I saw the flicker of vulnerability behind them. "I know it's not simple, but what if you're missing out on something real? Something that could make you happier?" His words hung in the air, tempting, yet terrifying. I wanted to scream, to push him away, but instead, I felt my resolve falter. What if I don't want to hurt anyone? What if I'm just confused? He stepped back, the distance between us feeling like a chasm. "Confusion is normal, Emily, but you have to be honest with yourself. You can't keep dancing around this." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his gaze on me. "And if I want to explore this, whatever this is?" Ryan crossed his arms, a defensive posture that stung. "Then you need to be honest with Jake too. You owe him that much." The morning light streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on the chaos of my thoughts. I felt disoriented, caught between the life I had built and the unexpected spark that threatened to unravel everything. The next morning, I woke up alone, the bed empty and cold. I reached for my phone, hoping to distract myself from the lingering tension of the previous night. Ryan was gone, leaving only the echo of our conversation. I tried to push thoughts of him aside as I prepared for Jake's return that evening, but every task felt heavy, as if I were walking through quicksand. I brewed coffee, the rich aroma filling the kitchen, yet it did little to lift the weight in my chest. My mind drifted back to Ryan's words, his challenge, his invitation to explore something deeper. I shook my head, trying to dispel the ghosts of our previous interactions. As I stood at the window, watching the world outside move with an effortless grace, I couldn't help but wonder if I was missing something vital. My phone buzzed and my heart leaped, only to sink when I saw it was just a notification from my calendar. I sighed, wishing for a moment of clarity amidst the confusion. When evening approached, I found myself pacing, rehearsing a smile for Jake that felt more like a mask. Would he notice the shadows beneath my eyes? Would he sense the storm brewing within me? I had to pull myself together. I needed to be the wife he expected me to be, even as I fought against the pull of my heart. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across our dining room, I felt the weight of my secret pressing down on me like an anchor. Jake had just returned from his business trip, and I was determined to put on a cheerful facade for his sake. If not for his, then at least for the illusion of our perfect life. I had set the table with our best plates, lit candles, and even made his favorite dish. But no matter how hard I tried, the memory of Ryan lingered in the back of my mind, taunting me with its forbidden allure. "Wow, Em, this looks amazing," Jake said as he walked through the door, his tired eyes lighting up at the sight of the table. He pulled me in for a quick hug, his scent, familiar and comforting, wrapped around me like a warm blanket. Yet, somehow, it felt different. There was a distance I couldn't quite place. "Thanks. I thought we could have a nice evening together," I replied, forcing a smile. "How was the trip?" "Long and exhausting," he said, taking a seat. "But it's good to be home." He looked around, his gaze lingering on the candlelight, and I wondered if he noticed how I was trying to mask the turmoil brewing inside me. As we ate, I did my best to engage him in conversation, but my mind kept drifting back to Ryan. The way he had looked at me, his eyes filled with something that felt dangerously close to desire. I shook my head slightly, trying to dispel the thought. I had to focus on Jake. "Emily, are you okay?" Jake asked suddenly. His fork paused midair. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just tired, I guess," I replied, plastering on a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Really? You seem a little distant." I could feel my heart racing at his observation. "No, really, I'm just happy you're home. He nodded, but I could see the concern etched on his features. The conversation shifted to work and mundane details, but even as we laughed and reminisced about our day-to-day lives, I felt the gnawing guilt settle in my stomach. Later that evening, as the plates were cleared and we settled on the couch, the phone rang, an unexpected interruption to our intimate moment. Jake answered it, his expression shifting to one of seriousness as he walked into the other room. I could hear snippets of his conversation, his voice low and professional. "Yeah, I'll handle it. No, I can't talk about this now." I felt a pang of disappointment. The warmth of our dinner was dissipating, replaced by the coldness of his work obligations. Sitting in the dim light, I grabbed a throw blanket, wrapping it around me like a shield. "Sorry, babe, it's work again," Jake called from the other room, and I could hear the frustration in his tone. "It's fine," I replied, trying to mask my irritation. I understood that work was essential, but in that moment I felt neglected. My heart was torn, feeling both angry and sad at the distance growing between us. As I waited for him to return, I felt my phone buzz on the coffee table. I reached for it, my heart racing as I saw Ryan's name flash on the screen. A simple text. "Can we meet? I need to see you." My pulse quickened. I glanced up toward the hallway, where Jake's voice was still muffled by the door. I felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with guilt. I knew I shouldn't respond, but the thought of Ryan, his warm smile, and the way he had looked at me was intoxicating. "Emily?" Jake's voice broke through my thoughts as he re-entered the room, his face still slightly drawn from the call. "Everything okay?" I quickly tucked the phone away, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just a text from Sarah." "Ah, good old Sarah. Always checking in." He settled back on the couch beside me, and I could feel the tension in the air. But deep down, my mind was racing. Should I meet Ryan? What would that mean for my marriage? The thrill of the unknown was calling to me, a siren song that I found impossible to resist. As I wrestled with my emotions, I felt a rush of clarity wash over me. I wanted to explore this feeling, this spark that had ignited with Ryan. But at what cost? How could I reconcile this desire with the life I had built with Jake? The questions spiraled in my mind, each one leading me deeper into a labyrinth of uncertainty. "Earth to Emily," Jake said, waving a hand in front of my face, pulling me back to reality. "Sorry, I was just thinking." I trailed off, feeling the weight of my choices pressing down on me. "About what?" he asked, his brow furrowing in concern. I shook my head, not ready to divulge the storm brewing inside me. "Just about the week ahead. Lots to do." He nodded, oblivious to the internal battle raging within me. And as the evening wore on, I realized that I was standing at a crossroads, the path ahead filled with both potential joy and devastating consequences. The cafe was bustling with the mid-morning rush, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mixing with the sweet scent of pastries. I sat at a small table near the window, nervously tapping my fingers against the ceramic mug. My heart raced as I waited for Ryan to arrive. This meeting felt monumental, like a fork in the road that would change everything. When Ryan finally walked in, a wave of warmth washed over me. He looked effortlessly handsome in a fitted navy shirt, his dark hair slightly tousled. As he spotted me, a smile broke across his face, and I felt a flutter in my stomach, a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Hey, sorry I'm late," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Traffic was a nightmare." "No worries," I replied, trying to sound casual. "I just got here myself." We exchanged small talk, but the air was thick with unspoken words. I could feel the tension building, a current that pulled us closer even as I fought against it. Finally, I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "Ryan, we need to talk." He leaned in, his gaze intense. "I know. I can't stop thinking about last night. About us." A shiver ran down my spine. "It's complicated," I murmured, glancing away. "I'm still married to Jake. I get that. But you and I have this connection, Emily. It's real," he said, his voice low and earnest. "I've never felt this way about anyone before." I bit my lip, the weight of his words pressing down on me. "I feel it too. But what does it mean? I can't just throw everything away. Maybe it's not about throwing anything away. Maybe it's about finding what you truly want," he replied, reaching across the table to take my hand. His touch sent a jolt through me, igniting feelings I had been trying to suppress. I pulled my hand back, my heart racing with uncertainty. "I don't know if I'm ready for this. I love Jake, or at least I used to. But things have changed." Ryan leaned back, his expression shifting from hope to concern. "What do you want, Emily? What do you really want?" I stared into his eyes, searching for answers I wasn't sure I had. "I want to feel alive again," I whispered. "I want to remember who I am outside of being a wife." "Then maybe you need to give yourself permission to explore that," he suggested gently. "We can take it slow, no pressure." I nodded slowly, contemplating his words, but before I could respond, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Jake, asking how I was doing. The guilt washed over me like a cold wave, and I hesitated, torn between my loyalty to him and the intoxicating thrill of being with Ryan. "Emily?" Ryan's voice broke through my thoughts. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just thinking," I replied, forcing a smile. "Maybe we should just take a step back. I'm not sure I can do this." Ryan's expression darkened, and I could see the disappointment in his eyes. "If that's what you want, I respect it. But I can't pretend I don't care about you." "Ryan, it's not that simple," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I need to figure things out with Jake first." "Fine," he said, his tone clipped. "But don't pretend you don't feel this. Don't pretend you don't want this." I looked away, feeling the weight of his words settle heavily on my chest. I knew he was right, but the thought of betraying Jake felt unbearable. "I need time," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "Take all the time you need," Ryan replied, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of hurt. The conversation ended awkwardly, and as we walked out of the cafe, I felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. My heart was torn in two directions, and I didn't know which path to follow. Back home, the house felt empty and cold. Jake had texted again, asking if I wanted to talk when he got home. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, unsure of how to respond. The door creaked open, and there he was, his face lighting up as he stepped inside. "Hey, babe," he called, but the warmth in his voice felt distant. "Hi," I replied, forcing a smile as I tried to push thoughts of Ryan out of my mind, but the moment was short-lived. As we settled into the evening, Jake picked up on my distance. "You've been off lately. Is everything okay?" I swallowed hard, my heart racing. "I've just been thinking about things." "Like what?" he probed, concern etched on his face. "Just about us," I mumbled, feeling the weight of my secrets. "Emily, you can talk to me. I'm here for you," he said, stepping closer. "I know," I whispered. But as his words hung in the air, I felt the walls closing in around me, suffocating me with the weight of my choices. The tension between us crackled like static electricity, and I realized that the truth had the power to shatter everything I thought I knew. I stood in the kitchen, the sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating the remnants of breakfast. My heart raced as I faced Ryan, who was leaning casually against the counter, the tension thick in the air. I was determined to end this before it spiraled further out of control. "Ryan," I began, my voice steady, but my hands trembling. "We need to talk." He looked up, his blue eyes piercing through my resolve. "Emily, please don't do this. We have something special. I can't just walk away." His voice was laced with desperation, and I felt a pang of guilt. But I knew I had to put my marriage first. Jake needed me to be loyal, and I had to honor that. "Ryan, I can't. I love Jake. I've made a commitment to him," I said, my words hanging heavy in the air. But as soon as I spoke, I felt the weight of my own hypocrisy. How could I say I loved Jake when I was here, standing this close to Ryan, feeling a pull I couldn't deny? He took a step closer, his expression softening. "Emily, you can't tell me you felt nothing between us. You can't ignore this chemistry." His voice dropped to a whisper, each word wrapping around me like a warm blanket. "You know it's real." My breath hitched as I searched his eyes, the truth lingering just beneath the surface. I know it feels real, Ryan, but this, I gestured between us. This isn't right. We're family. Family? He scoffed, a bitter edge creeping into his tone. What about loyalty? What about your happiness? Is being miserable with him worth it? His words struck a chord deep within me, and I felt a rush of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Before I could respond, he continued, I can't stand by and watch you suffer. You deserve better than him. His voice wavered, and I saw the unshed tears in his eyes. You deserve to be happy. Just then, Ryan's expression shifted, a shadow creeping across his features. Emily, there's something you need to know. Something Jake has kept from you. The gravity of his words hit me like a slap. He's not who you think he is. He's been unfaithful. My heart stopped, and the world around me blurred. What? I gasped, my mind racing. You're lying. He wouldn't do that to me. But even as I said it, doubt gnawed at my insides. Emily, I wish I were, but I've seen him with someone else. I've covered for him, tried to protect you from the truth. His voice broke, the sincerity in his eyes compelling me to listen. He doesn't deserve your love. You need to know the truth. I shook my head, trying to process the betrayal. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the counter. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I felt a surge of anger mixed with betrayal. How could he keep this from me? I thought I could fix it, he confessed, his voice raw. But I couldn't stand watching you with him, knowing what he was doing behind your back. His words hung heavy in the air, and I felt like I was suffocating. Just then, my phone buzzed on the counter, cutting through the tension. I glanced down and saw an unknown number flashing on the screen. My stomach twisted as I hesitated to pick it up, fear and curiosity colliding inside me. Emily, please, Ryan pleaded, stepping closer, his presence almost overwhelming. Don't let him fool you any longer. You deserve to know everything. I cleared my throat, trying to focus. I need to see what this is, I murmured, my heart pounding. I unlocked my phone and opened the message. It read, I know what Jake has been doing. Meet me if you want the truth. A cold shiver ran down my spine as I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Who was this person? What did they know? And could I really face Jake after everything Ryan had just revealed? Emily, don't, Ryan said, his voice laced with urgency. You need to think this through. Confronting him could change everything. But I was already spiraling. The weight of betrayal from both men felt like a vice around my chest. My heart raced as I contemplated my next move, whether to confront Jake or dive deeper into this web of secrets. My fingers trembled as I hovered over the screen, caught between the life I thought I knew and the chaotic storm of emotions swirling around me.